Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I'm Serial, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 68, Shapur II. Hi, this is pre-recording Umberto here to let you know that this is actually episode 68.1. It's the first part of Shapur II. Serial doesn't know this. I haven't told them. They'll find out at the end of the episode, because, you know, fetus king. But as the audience, you know it from the title of the episode, so I hope you enjoy episode 68.1 of Shapur II. Last time we left off with a fetus being crowned king. Today we get to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, that was something that
Yes,
happened,
it was. What are your expectations, Sarah? This can go many different ways, so I'm going to give you a few options. Option 1. As soon as he's born, he dies soon after. Option 2. He manages to do a Baby Alex option where he dies just before becoming king in his own right. Option 3. He lives to adulthood. Option 4. He lives to old age. What are your thoughts? What are your expectations?
I think he dies in childhood. I do not have high
Poor
expectations
child.
for this
So
unborn
you think
baby.
getting a head start on
Yeah, I
being
mean, like,
king
it's
won't
not.
give him the necessary
Listen,
work
it's not his
experience?
fault. It's not his fault. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's so terrible he's
It's
not
like a
going to make
Baby
it. I'm
Alex
saying,
situation where it's like,
like,
I'm sorry, this is not
Yeah,
something a child should be doing. This is a bad deal for
Yep.
everyone. So you don't think he's going to be equal to the first Shapur, who subdued 3 Roman
No.
emperors and ruled as king of kings?
no.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. Times are tough, Sarah. Times are tough.
Glad we agree. Glad we agree.
Okay, so, well, let's get going. Let's recap what happened in the previous episodes, because let's go back a little bit to give proper context of where we are. We are now in not a great situation, because Narse, our beloved prince who was promised, has lost a bunch of territory to the Romans, lost a bunch of prestige, things aren't going well. His son Hormizd tried to take control back from the nobles and consolidate power. He failed, he was murdered. His son Adurnarse
Yeah.
tried to get control of the nobles. He failed, he was murdered. Enter Shapur.
We're sensing a certain,
Yes, there's a pattern. Let's
Yeah.
see through which means Shapur is going to die. Because our boy was not the son of Adurnarse. He was actually the son of Hormizd II, which tells us that the reign of Adurnarse cannot have been more than 9 months, because otherwise Shapur would have been born. So, yeah, Shapur was actually a either brother or half-brother of Adurnarse beforehand. And, well, as we saw at the end of last episode, the nobles decided to crown unborn Shapur as King of Kings. Now, what happened to the other siblings? Well, in the legendary version, there were no other siblings. Everything was fine. Shut up. Don't look into it.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
According to the more documented version, Shapur had older born siblings, but one of them was blinded, and the other one, who was actually an adult, managed to escape the court and run away to Rome. So we'll see if that ever comes back to haunt us. I'm sure the Romans will be good and sporting as they usually are. But in any case, no matter what happened to the siblings, the nobles came and placed the crown on Shapur's mother's pregnant belly and poured gold coins over it, which, I've never been pregnant, does not sound like a comfortable experience, but, you know, sure, I guess.
I guess it depends how high up
Yeah, exactly.
they poured them from.
Gold's heavy, still. But, Serial, there is one key problem we haven't considered.
Another.
Yes. Since Shapur is not born, and we don't have
Right.
echographic technology in this time period.
Yeah.
What is a key factor that the nobles haven't considered?
The sex of the baby?
That is correct. How do they know they're not accidentally crowning a queen?
Oh no, God. Terrible.
I mean, I'm okay with newborn kings, but I draw the line at a newborn woman king. That's terrible.
Yeah. There's not even a word for it.
Yes.
It's what's a woman king?
Woman king means nothing. How could you? Well, don't worry, the nobles thought of this. Because the astrologers said that the child would be a boy.
Well then, I don't know why you're worrying.
Exactly.
It's fine.
And just in case there were still any doubters in the audience, the astrologers decided to test this prediction by taking a camel and predicting the sex of its child. And they were right, so clearly it can't be random chance. Yeah. So the Shapur is going to be a male, supposedly. We'll see how that works.
Sure.
And, the first months of Shapur's reign are quite eventful. Because, we're told that he develops melanin, his skin is no longer transparent, he roughly doubles in weight.
Oh my God. The fact that you're going through the stages of development of a fetus tells me that he doesn't make it. They don't make it much further than being born. If they're born at all, which, debatable.
Serial, why do you mistrust me so?
Well, we have like a few episodes.
When have I ever given you reason to doubt me?
We have like about 60 episodes of this, so.
True, that's fair. But one fateful day, Shapur spun around and was eventually born. Hooray! Success! We've achieved existence. That's cool. And according to our historian Al-Talibi, he came into this world perfectly made of noble race, shining with the mark of majesty. So that's good.
What does that mean?
He's a pretty baby.
Okay.
He's a cute baby. Looks nice. Will look like what a baby king should look. Presumably with a halo or something. So, yay, we got to being born. Love that. How do you think the Empire is going to do under a newborn?
Well, I assume it's not the newborn that is actually going to be doing the ruling.
That is correct. Because, his mom is going to be in charge, mostly, for a while. She's going to be administering things, but in reality, it's likely that the nobles are going to handle everything and make sure that everything keeps running. But weirdly enough, it looks like this was going fine. Looks like the Empire was strong enough to just keep running without a king.
Uh-huh.
And it was like nothing fell apart and the nobles were just happy doing their thing and Shapur was...
Well, the issue with this is if it works without a king, then we don't need a king.
Well, Serial, that is possible. But then...
Like, it is a dangerous thing to,
that is true,
put forward.
But we do kind of need a king, because otherwise, why are the nobles working together at all?
Yeah.
So, questionable things happen.
Uh-huh.
Also, who do you think is ready to take advantage of there not being a king outside the Empire?
The Romans?
The Romans, exactly.
I hate that I'm right. I was like, tell me it's someone else, but no.
Nope. But we are quite lucky that Constantine is messing everything up for everyone in the Roman Empire. Because Constantine has decided that he wants all the empire. He's not going to stand for this tetrarchy business. And he is just going to conquer everything. And he'll be emperor of everything. And look at me, I'm Constantine the Great. Ha ha ha. I'm going to build a city and name it after myself.
Because that's trendy right now.
Yeah, it's on brand. It works.
For the past 1,000 years or so.
And, the advantage for us is that if the Romans are fighting themselves for the past 20 years, that gives time for Shapur to grow up and not be overthrown.
Okay, this is very interesting. I did not expect him to grow up at all.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, of course, if the Romans, who are like our main enemies, is an interesting word, but I mean like the people who like are attacking us the most, right? And like causing the most like instability outside of Armenia, I guess. And but yeah, of all the people that surround the empire, I think the Romans are the ones that pose the most danger most often. And if they're not in the picture, that's really interesting, because like as long as we can keep other things under control and other sorts of instability, which like it's hard on its own, like economic stability and also just keeping all the vassal kings under Persian rule, like I guess we should be fine. It's a good moment to have a poor leader because there's no crisis, I guess, other than picking up the pieces left by the Bahrams and Narseh and, you know,
it's been a while
this that happened. Yeah.
So, yeah, cool. The Romans aren't attacking. How's Shapur growing up? Shapur has learned how to walk. That's cool. He's learned how to speak. That's interesting.
That's good for a king, yeah.
He managed to speak multiple languages because, you know, useful when you're ruling an empire. It's nice to know that. That's helpful. And we're told that baby Shapur was especially wise and intelligent. Because it seems that one night he was awakened in Ctesiphon by the noise of people crowding around the river. And when he asked his advisors, what's going on? Why is everybody making this much noise? It's the middle of the night. Or, you know, past his bedtime, like 9 p.m.
It's the middle of the night.
His advisors told him that there's just too many people to cross the river in both directions, so they're shouting to find a way through and not be pushed into the river, and they're just trying to find a way to get one way or another. So Shapur came up with a solution. What would your solution be, Serial? There's too many people to crowd across this river, and they're going in opposite directions, and it's a mess.
Just make a street light, essentially. Like, tell some people to cross and then stop, and then some other people to cross and then stop. Like, put some order in that sense.
Shapur almost had the same idea.
Hey, I feel like it's a logical idea. It's just, well, some people need to wait and some people need to go.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, he has decided to even improve on that idea because he says, just build another bridge and you can go in one direction on one bridge, one direction on the other. Everybody will be happier that way. Is that cool? Okay, good.
I mean, that is a less immediate and more like to address
while,
the problem. Yeah. But it's smart because that means you can address the problem like when it happens in the future. Because I assume this is like a thing that happens often.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's good. Good baby Shapur.
Yeah.
And apparently his courtiers were, and I quote the Shahnameh, pleased that the young sapling had so soon produced green leaves.
The sapling.
Yes, it's a cute expression. It's nice.
I guess, yeah.
Then, at the age of 7, Shapur learned how to ride on horseback, which is just a hilarious picture to me to see like a 7-year-old on a massive horse. The image just makes me laugh. So he learned to ride for battle and for playing polo, because you can't always be battling, can you? And at the age of 8, he learned how to present himself as a king in court, so he is a tiny toddler wearing a crown, sitting on a throne, and addressing the court. Which is pretty cool.
Damn. Yeah. Impressive.
On the downside, we don't have a king. We don't have a king, Serial. And what is the traditional role of a king? What are some of the activities that a king must do that are probably not getting done?
I mean, I don't know. Are the nobles like taking care of relations with other, like, diplomacy?
No, the nobles are not. The nobles only care about their backyard.
Oh my god. Okay, then we have a problem. Because we're not, like, communicating with our allies or our enemies.
Yes, that's
which is bad. Because then our allies will become our enemies.
Yeah. Also, the king is generally the one who leads the imperial army and directs.
Well, I was going to say, like, I'm sure they have military leaders, right?
I mean, they do, but they're generally nobles.
All fall onto the king?
It's generally just nobles who have their own little private armies and use them for their own private little territories. And the king needs to show up and say, okay, everybody, let's do this now. But if there's no king...
But, like, here's the thing. It's like, it was their decision to do this, the nobles, I mean.
Yeah.
So, like, aren't they like, hey, guys, someone will have to take care of these things? Like, is this not a thing that people are aware of what the king does?
Serial, have you met any businessmen Do you think they care about the collective? They do not, Serial. They care about, I can make more profit now? That's great. What about next year? I don't care about next year. Who cares?
This affects everybody, though.
Well,
like,
yes, but if you're rich enough, does it affect you, Serial? If you're rich enough,
probably if someone invades, like...
Yeah, but what if you're far from the border? It's not my border, Serial. It's fine.
I hate it here.
So, yeah, people are taking advantage of the situation. Because the Arabs, remember them, we started stabbing them a little bit during Hormiz's reign. Well, the Arabs of Bahrain in particular are ravaging the coast of the Persian Gulf, and are even pillaging Fars, which is Persia proper, which is not a great look for the Sassanid Empire overall. Not only that, but in the Far East, the Kushans have managed to regain some of their lost power and are threatening the eastern border of the empire. So, it's not like the empire's collapsing, but you can definitely tell that it's doing poorly.
Is it not?
Like, no king is better than a bad king, but it's not much better.
Yeah.
And then, after the age of 8, something surprising happens to Shapur. Can you guess what, Sarah? Something entirely unexpected.
Like sarcastically or like actually?
Who knows? Up to your interpretation.
Does he die? Does he get poisoned? Because, like, the nobles have no reason to be mad at him.
No, not really.
I don't know. Does he just, like, fall and die?
No.
Or fall, like, ill?
Nope. To everyone's surprise, and certainly my own, he grows up, becomes 16, and becomes king in his own right. And he manages to wield power normally.
Oh my god. I thought you were talking about when he was 8 years old.
Yeah, after he was 8 years old.
What?
He grows up. Things happen.
You set me up for that.
Of course
one.
I did.
I don't like this. This is not fair. That is bad sportsmanship.
Yes, fair. But yeah, he's 16. He is king of kings now.
Okay.
He's done it.
Okay.
Why? How?
Yeah.
I can only
How did it
assume
happen?
that either everybody was full of integrity and realized, no, we actually kind of do need a king. It's been 16 years without a king. We should maybe get one. That would be nice. And everybody just agreed to share power and be upstanding citizens. Or the more humorous option, which I prefer, is that everybody was trying to manipulate him at the same time and they all cancelled each other out and it was fine at the end. So I'm hoping that was the case.
See.
We'll see. And yeah, as he's grown up into a strong young man, he is apparently also quite handsome. And the Shahnameh describes him in the following way. It says, his cheeks were pink as rose petals, his hair as black as musk, his face as ruddy as the sweet-smelling blossoms of the Hyrcanian willow tree.
Damn, pretty boy.
He also adds that he was a buff boy, because we are told that he had arms the size of a horse's thighs and the chest of a lion.
Okay, well...
Which is a beefy individual.
They might be overdoing that.
Might be a tiny bit exaggerating in the 1,000 years that passed between the epic poem and his life. But, it's good to know. So, what does Shapur do with his power now? Well, he decides that it's time to stop all these Arab raids that are going on. This is kind of a nuisance. He needs to make sure that nobody can just raid Persia and get away with it. There's going to be consequences.
Fair, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in 325, he began a campaign which saw him defeat one group of raiders in Mesopotamia. Then he crossed the Persian Gulf into Bahrain, where he killed much of the local population and destroyed the wells to cut off the water supply in the region so they would never return, and were told that blood flowed like a river. So that's an intense start.
Yep.
Just like, okay, I suppose. In the Shahnameh again, we're also told that the last city fell to him because a princess there delivered it to him because she was so smitten with this beautiful young man that she made all the guards drunk and took their keys and let him in.
Which, I guess, believable.
Could happen. Seems to be a handsome lad. Why not? Shapur then decided that no Arab would ever raid his empire again, because it's time to absolutely teach them a lesson and ensure that they do not come back.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did is he sacked Arab settlements all across Arabia and Syria, including the city of Medina, which isn't that important right now, but it's going to be at the end of the podcast.
I see.
And he raided them so thoroughly that he came to be known as Shapur II Dhu'l-Aktaf, which means Shapur the shoulder piercer.
Okay. We're going all in.
Yes, we're going hardcore. Because according to Al-Tabari, he would pierce the shoulder blades of his Arab prisoners to stop them from making war again, stringing them together by their shoulders or dislocating them, or sometimes ripping them off.
That's...
To be fair, these are Arabian authors, but also,
Yeah, they have a reason to, want to paint him in a bad light. But also, if we are to believe them, which I'm not saying we have to, but if we are to
kind of hardcore. Yeah, so he's called Shapur the shoulder piercer, or as I like to call him, Shapur Shattershoulder.
Shattershoulder. You're so proud of that one, aren't you?
I am very proud of it. I thought of it. It was me. But yeah, again, from Al-Tabari, we're told that Shapur spread general slaughter among them and shed so much of their blood that it flowed like a torrent swollen by a rainstorm.
Oof.
Those who were able to flee realized that no cave in a mountain nor any island in the sea was going to save them.
Damn.
Another historian tells us that Shapur left nothing but rotting bones in those lands, and the only ones that managed to escape were the ones that fled to Roman lands. Unsurprisingly, the raids stopped. Everybody was absolutely terrified of this murderous child.
You don't say.
That they thought, let's maybe not bother those people anymore. Good God, this is terrifying. They have committed so many war crimes. So many.
He was so intense. I did not expect this from this child.
Yeah, me neither. It's intense. But then we get a prophecy, Serial.
Oh.
Because at one point, Shapur met an old Arabian woman on his campaign. And this old woman told Shapur that if he was looking for vengeance, he had obtained it.
Oh.
So it was time to stop.
Okay.
But if he meant to exterminate the Arabs, there will come a reckoning, even if it takes a long time.
Basically stop prosecuting an entire race of people.
Yes. Which is generally frowned upon by civilized society. Yes.
Well, generally. We are in very messed up times currently.
Yes, definitely.
But you would like to think,
Yes, you would hope.
that genocide is typically a bad thing that we don't want to happen.
Yeah. We do not like genocide.
As a species.
We would prefer to stop.
Mm-hmm. So, who was this woman?
She was a random old woman, presumably given the gift of prophecy.
Wait, we don't have, any more information on her? She just,
No, she's
approached them on the street, or...?
She was an NPC that had an important quest information.
What? Who... Because if she was just someone random on the street, how do you approach the king?
I assume she went there with the sense of self that any extremely old woman has, where she can just go up and berate the king with a wooden spoon.
Honestly.
I feel like that's the vibe.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So lovely old woman.
What are you gonna do? I'm in my 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Come at me. And alternatively, Shapur met a 300-year-old Arab chieftain who told him a prophecy that the Arabs would eventually take over, and said that Shapur should be merciful and let the Arabs survive, because at least when the Arabs came, they would let the Persians survive next time. So, can you tell that these prophecies were written after the rise of Islam? Perhaps.
Well, maybe. It has
Perhaps.
a certain, a certain
je ne sais
sass
quoi,
to it.
yes.
Yeah.
So, apparently Shapur thought that maybe dooming all his descendants forever isn't worth committing genocide. So, let's not do that. That'd be nice. But then he followed the lessons of Shapur I, and he deported some of the Arab tribes into the empire and founded a new city in Mesopotamia, with a large defensive complex called the Wall of the Arabs, or according to certain translations, the Ditch of the Arabs. So I assume the original term is something akin to fortification, because it's either a wall or a hole. Which is it? Or both, who knows? But yeah, it was a massive structure, 650 kilometers long, including a wall and a massive canal that diverted water from the Euphrates to make a massive moat. And then he installed a noble as warden of this wall, which makes it sound like a much sandier Night's Watch. Which, interesting job if you can get it. Information is also hazy, but it looks like Shapur might have begun building a similar structure in the Caucasus to stop incursions by the Alans.
The Alans? Sorry, I feel like that's always so funny.
It's good. After the war, Shapur came home, and he decided that it was time to deal with the nobles.
Good, because he's been, we have established that he has some commanding prowess and also maybe anger issues, and he's been directing all of this power towards the outside, and I'm like, you have issues in your empire too, my friend.
How do you think his trying to take control of the nobles goes?
Well, I don't think it will be painless, but he is scary, so hopefully the nobles respect him a little.
So unfortunately we don't really have much detail, but it looks like Shapur manages to put a bridle on the nobles. The nobles...
I would also be terrified of this child.
So, understandable.
Just saying.
Seeing the rivers of blood that their king has conjured up, the nobles think, maybe we should just, play nice this generation. Is that cool? Is that good for everyone?
Just keep our mouths shut.
Yeah. And it looks like Shapur managed to properly control the nobles because they don't rebel. They don't do anything against him.
I am so impressed.
Just,
I am so impressed by this child. I hate that every time I want to be helpful, you're like, no. And then every time that I'm like, yeah, I've learned time and time again that this goes badly, you're like, well, guess what?
Guess
Joke's
what?
on
There's
you.
always some
Here's an
wunderkind.
incredible ruler who is going to shatter all of your expectations.
And your shoulders, but yes.
And my... Well, I'm not an Arab, so I'm not a fighter, so...
That's fair.
I can just...
Cyril, there was nowhere in there that said he only killed fighters. That was entirely not implied.
I can make paintings for you.
That's good. You can be one of the ones that are deported into the Empire. That's good. That's better, I suppose.
He's not gonna come all the way to where I'm currently or where I was when I was born, so I think it would have been okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait for season 2 for that to happen.
I see.
If we do, but yes. But okay, well, Shapur is now controlling the nobles. He's controlled the Arab raids. Time to crush the Kushans in the east. Because the Kushan Empire has existed for a while. It's existed since the late Parthian days, and it's been in a weird relationship with the Sassanids for a long time, because sometimes they're vassals, other times they're strong rivals. Some of the rulers call themselves King of Kings, there was this massive rebellion under Bahram II, which threatened the integrity of the empire. But Shapur marches all the way east, and we don't have much detail, but when Shapur leaves the east, the Kushan Empire no longer exists. It is now assimilated to the Sassanid Empire.
Well, that is intense.
Yeah.
I guess something happened. Right?
He clearly did a good job, whatever it was. He managed to annihilate this centuries-old empire. And now the eastern border of the Sassanid Empire is the Indus River.
Well, there we go.
So that's cool.
It's fine. This is okay.
And yeah, it looks like Shapur appreciated this new Indian province of his empire because he took a bunch of Indian doctors off from there and brought them to the heart of the empire, where he set up a long-standing medical school, which would eventually carry on into Islamic tradition and is the reason Islamic medicine is so highly appraised.
Highly prized?
highly considered.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yes.
say. But yeah, I mean, I have heard of Islamic medicine throughout history and how
Yeah.
they
These
made
were the
huge
people
strides.
performing appendectomies in like the 9th century.
Yeah, intense.
It is pretty hardcore.
That's incredible. So this is where it starts.
This is in part where it starts, yeah. Shapur thinks having a medical school, probably a good idea. Let's fund that. I like this idea. Let's go.
I'm both terrified of this person. Like, I think he's a horrible person that's prosecuting people outside of his empire and terrifying people inside of his empire. But also, I am so impressed by everything that he's accomplishing. And I'm really curious to see, like, if things are better or worse throughout his reign. Because in the end, like, in my opinion, like, what I usually base my opinions off of is, like, are people happier? Is it more likely that you would have a happy life if you lived during this period, right? Which, like, I don't know anything about, right? Because I don't know what life might have been at the time. But in the sense of, like, are we being raided every second day? And are we, like, in the middle of war? Or, like, are most people just living a peaceful life and, like, economy is fine? And it seems like, you know, there's culture being made and, like, buildings being constructed. Because that is a huge reflection, in my opinion, of, like, a society that is flourishing, is when actually culture and arts can be maintained and funded. Not that they're not, like, important throughout. Art is what,
but if
like,
they are
makes us
being
human
funded,
and keeps us
it's a good
living.
sign
But
of a healthy society.
yeah, when like the actual government is like, here's a bunch of money for it, then you're like, oh, cool. I guess they're doing great. They can cultivate their minds and their hearts and their souls, and everyone's...
Yeah, I mean, for now, if you are Bob the peasant living in Mesopotamia, well, you're no longer being raided by the Arabs anymore. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Your noble landlord doesn't have absolute power anymore, which
Great.
is helpful. And you're getting some construction work, which is cool. And the trade routes are secure in the east now, so that's nice.
So this seems pretty cool.
You know, if you're Bob the peasant, life's looking up. Let's see if it continues that way.
Interesting. All right.
But yeah, I've been using violent language for this Eastern conquest, but we have no proof that it was like a massive war.
Yeah.
And it's possible that just some Kushano-Sassanid lords in the region just decided to become subjects of Shapur because
he's cool.
It was better. Yeah, it was like maybe Shapur defeated one guy and everybody else was like, yeah, you're probably
Actually,
doing
yeah.
a better job. Let's not.
I don't mind
This
this.
is fine, yeah.
I see.
So who knows? And Shapur also doesn't tell us why he started this expansion, but what we know is that there's been significant nomad activity in the steppe, and Shapur no longer trusted his Kushano-Sassanid nominal vassals with that important task of defense.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they had rebelled before, so that's messy. And, you know, maybe the Kushano-Sassanids thought, oh, thank goodness, there's somebody who can actually deal with these nomads that have been acting up. I don't want to be king anymore. I just want to be a pampered noble somewhere else. That sounds like a much easier job.
Yeah.
And yeah, this conquest also allowed Shapur to take another step away from the old Parthian system and not leave the area to a vassal ruler, but take direct control of it, which would give him a lot more freedom of action.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, it would require some more work on controlling the east, but he seems capable enough. He can try this. But what about Rome, Serial?
Yeah, what about
Rome?
Rome
Still exists.
Does it?
They've recently made a new Rome. It's Rome 2.0, also known as Constantinople. It's much closer to us. That's threatening.
Yeah, what happened to, like, being in Italy? Guys?
Yeah, apparently being in Italy doesn't work out anymore, and the rich part of the empire and the part that is threatened by a comparable empire is the east. So that's probably where they're going to set their new capital. And yeah, if you remember, the peace signed by Narse was a few decades ago, and it's been holding firm so far. Everybody's agreed. I mean, it was a positive peace for the Romans, so they had no reason to break it, and we weren't doing so hot, so no reason for us to break it either. But it looks like the Romans were getting frisky. In particular, Constantine, not content with just being called Constantine the Great, was trying to pick a fight with Persia and add a nice Persicus to his name.
Wouldn't he like that, huh?
That would be nice. That would look good on his resume. And Constantine wrote a letter to Shapur, we're told. And he says that all the Roman emperors that had lost to Persia, in particular Valerian, had been people that were persecuting Christians. Which excludes Philip, who possibly was a Christian, but let's ignore that.
We just need to communicate the history bits that, like, favor our point.
Yeah.
Nobody said that we have to, like, actually
facts,
be
Serial.
accurate, you know.
Serial, this is politics. We don't care about facts. We just want it to
Exactly.
look good. And, well, Constantine says that, well, he is now the Christian emperor. He is emperor of a Christian empire. And he asks Shapur to take care of the Christians in his empire for him. Because based on what Constantine said at the Council of Nicaea, all Christians are his subjects. Let me repeat that. All Christians, Ariel. The Christians in all of the world are subjects of Constantine, no matter where they might live. And Shapur better take care of the ones living in Persia.
I feel like that's not how that works.
Well, Constantine had already used this pretext against his rival Licinius, and Licinius is now dead and dethroned.
I don't know what to tell you. This feels like a wrong thing to do. How to piss off a Persian king.
Yeah, you know another way to piss off a Persian king? Constantine names his nephew King of Kings and ruler of Persia.
Sure, because he can just do that, right? He can just do that now? It's
fine. I mean, they defeated Narse, so why not absolutely destroy Persia?
Well, you know, I guess they can try.
Definitely can. So what happens? Well, there's some initial combat on the Armenian front.
Oh my god. I am great. So, okay.
Because Armenian, yes. We're told that a Christian Armenian king had been killed by some rebellious nobles, and Shapur attempted to march in and make his son Narse king. But then Constantine sent his nephew, the one that's supposedly king of kings, to retake the country. And we're told that Prince Narse was defeated and his harem captured.
Oh.
That sounds unlikely because it's an exact repetition of what happened to the king Narse, so it might just be somebody getting confused with their Narses.
Same name, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not sure, but it's possible.
We'll make a note of it, but that seems to me like they got it mixed up.
Yeah. So in the end, the war in Armenia was stopped. Everybody agreed, okay, it's getting out of hand. This isn't the main theater of the war, let's calm down. So the son of the previous king of Armenia was made king, though it looks like he was not exactly a Persian puppet, but at least pro-Persian. So that's nice. That's pretty good. And then, great news, Serial. Just when he was preparing his great expedition against Persia, Constantine the Great dies.
Get wrecked.
And he leaves the worst succession.
I forget, actually, so if you could remind
He splits the empire between his three sons.
Oh, yeah, I know, I remember this. Yeah.
And gives Constantinople to another son.
Over and over again.
Yeah, and his nephew is still technically king of kings.
Right. So
which is like, what does this mean? Who knows?
This is so funny.
Yeah.
Like, when in history, especially in Roman history, has this worked?
I mean, this explicitly hasn't worked for Constantine himself. Like, he's seen that splitting the empire ends with one guy trying to take over all of it.
Yeah.
What were you thinking, my dude?
And, like, just looking at their own history, which they seem to, like, love to, you know, retell.
Yeah.
Like, they should know, right? They should know.
Yeah, apparently not. Constantine was a smart man, but not in this.
I don't understand. This seems like such a ridiculous decision. And, like, I understand in the sense of, like, not wanting to then get yourself in trouble for favoring one person over another. But, like, if you're gonna die one day, right? Because we all do.
Yes.
Like, at that point, who cares? You could just do it on your deathbed.
Yeah, maybe he's naively thinking, oh, well,
This time it'll work.
yeah, this time it'll work. And
Hubris.
before I wasn't killing my family members, these kids have grown up together. Maybe they'll care enough about each other's well-being that they won't rip the Empire apart.
Well, I mean, for that you need to know them, right? Like, you need to know what kind of person they are.
Yeah. By the way, loving his family, this coming from the man who killed his eldest son and wife. But, you know.
Oh god. I forgot about that. That's horrible.
Yeah. That is a harsh time.
When did that happen?
There is a reason Constantine got baptized at the end of his life, because he was committing a lot of sins.
He was like, it didn't count!
Didn't count!
It's fine.
I'm good now. Okay, bye.
Just right before he dies. Alright, bye! All my sins are forgiven now. I just had the devil within me, but now he's gone. So
yeah, it's fine.
Good to heaven. Bye!
I mean, he's a saint in the Orthodox Church, I think.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So, well, what happens now? Well, Shapur has noticed that the West, the Rome, is kind of a mess. So it might be time to avenge Narse's defeat and retake the lands that were lost and just get our pride back. That'll be nice. So Shapur's war with Rome are generally framed as Shapur reconquering what his ancestors had. Although it's unclear who his ancestors are, who he's referring to. Because it could be that they are the Achaemenids, so he is just grandiosely claiming to regain all, basically, the African and Asian part of the Roman Empire. Or it could be the Chionids of Shahnameh fame, which is basically the mythical lords of the world that ruled Iran. So he is technically claiming overlordship over everything. Okay. Or more prosaically, he could just be referring to the apex of the empire under Shapur I and saying, I want to go back to the good old days of my namesake. Let's do this. So think you what you will based on what your opinion of Shapur is. How grandiose or not you think he might be.
This is so funny that, like, we just don't know what he was referring to.
Yeah, he was just saying, I'm coming to take back the lands of my ancestors. That's open to interpretation.
Which
Armenia is definitely
the
part
ancestors.
of it, but beyond that, we don't know. Yes.
Interesting, yeah.
So yeah, the war began with Shapur besieging the fortified city of Nisibis, which, if you remember, was the one that the Romans had designated as the only city for trade between the two empires. And yeah, Shapur is attacking it and besieging it, while a pro-Persian revolt started up in Armenia. And at the same time, the Roman garrison of Antioch mutinied against the sons of Constantine.
Get wrecked. Armenia is now on our side.
So yeah, good. The Eastern Augustus Constantius II decided to maintain a defensive strategy, trying to strengthen fortresses and wait Shapur out. He didn't collect a big field army and march against Shapur. He decided, we have strong forts, let's wait and see what happens. Well, unfortunately for us, this was a good strategy, because Shapur's vast army was unable to breach the fortress of Nisibis, and he was forced to break off the siege after 10 weeks because he had received a letter from the east. More on that later.
Okay.
After this defeat, Constantius suppressed the pro-Persian revolt in Armenia by strengthening the Christian nobles, and he made deals with the Arabs that Shapur had defeated a decade earlier to restart their raids. Must have been very convincing after what Shapur did to them. At this point, the Romans pressed their advantage by moving across the Tigris River at Singara and attacked Shapur's forces, led by his son and heir Narse.
Making a note to use press their advantage as a euphemism on my next fanfic. Okay, continue. I'm so sorry to all of our listeners.
Yes, good euphemism.
What were you saying about the Romans?
Yes.
I tend to space out when we're talking about, like, military advancements and things.
That's fine. The Romans are attacking Narse, Shapur's son and heir. We're told in this battle, the Persian side started to withdraw, but the Romans gave chase and managed to capture and kill Narse. However, the Romans had chased too far, and when they went searching for water that evening, they were showered by Persian arrows, and the army was forced to retreat back into Roman territory with extremely heavy losses. Yes. So possibly this was part of the plan. Like, it might have been that they did a fake retreat to draw the Romans in, but, clearly Narse dying was not part of it.
Yeah.
So, in the end, this whole expedition was a costly draw. Sort of like Shapur's first attack. So we've lost a lot, but nobody's really winning yet.
Yeah. Heck.
We're then told that Shapur tried to besiege Nisibis a second time. But again, this other time we know that it still didn't succeed. It was still too strong a fortress. He did not make it through. But the third time, Serial, he came back.
But 3.
Yes.
3 is the number. Not 2 or 1. Not 4 or 5. 6 is far too many. But 3?
3 is it. And yeah, he came with massive offensive siege weapons, and he even built and destroyed a dam across a nearby river to try and flood the city. And according to one pro-Roman source, Shapur actually used these floodwaters to build a lake surrounding Nisibis, in which he floated ships to better attack the walls.
Interesting.
But that's kind of cuckoo bananas crazy, so it's almost certainly didn't happen, because building a lake outside a city to put ships on it to better take the city seems like it's just making it more complicated for you.
That is so funny. It is a little bit cuckoo bananas crazy, you're right.
Exactly. Would be cool, but unlikely.
Unlikely, yeah. Probably didn't happen.
Yeah. We're told that the Persians even managed to breach the walls one time, but they were fixed rapidly by the Romans during the night. So there's this constant back and forth with some people winning, some people losing. It's just very, very hard fought and very intense. And also apparently a ghost with the face of Constantius appeared running around the walls. Don't question it. It was a miracle, and the Christians said that that's what made Shapur run away. It's fine.
I was gonna ask, what did this miracle accomplish, if it was a miracle? Because just a ghost randomly appearing is like, ooh, spooky, scary story, but I guess.
Yeah.
Did we run away then?
Scared Shapur. Yeah, Shapur, after 4 months of siege, decided that it's too difficult to maintain an army here. He's gonna leave.
So it could have been the ghost, or it could have been that actually a siege is a lot of, resource consuming thing to do, and you're like, okay, maybe it's not worth it if they're not budging. Maybe, but maybe it was the ghost.
Tried to take Nisibis, but Nisibis is still holding strong. It is a tough city, and it is going to be relevant pretty much almost until the end of the podcast, because it is a tough cookie. Yeah, so this war had Shapur besiege Nisibis 3 times, but there is no victory on either side, despite constant fighting.
Is it because of how this city is constructed? Or where it is?
Well, there are a few reasons, because Shapur was weaker in his siege techniques. They hadn't advanced enough. And Diocletian had made sure to fortify the eastern border of the Roman Empire with an impressive series of well-made fortresses. This is part of Rome's new strategy of just hunkering down and holding tight. And trebuchets and all that sort of thing haven't been invented yet. They will be invented in China and brought along by steppe nomads eventually, but for now they're just using older siege methods with newer fortifications. So they're, the attacker is on the back foot. So clearly they're having trouble going there. And on the flip side, the Romans are having trouble moving into our territory because Persian cavalry is unmatched and could just raid the countryside without the Romans being able to do much about it.
Yeah.
And so the Romans are strong in their fortifications, but the Romans can't counterattack, so bit of a stalemate going on.
Yeah, also, I like that we mentioned the Persian cavalry. Every time it happens, I'm like, heck yeah, it's the best.
Good cavalry stuff. And then we get a very fun but absolutely not historical story where Shapur went to the Roman Empire in disguise to discover their strategies. And when he was in disguise, he was discovered during a feast because one of the guests had a Persian cup with Shapur's face on it and said, "Wait, aren't you the guy from the cup?"
That is so funny. Hey, this kind of looks like you, man.
Weird. You look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?
Shapur? What? That's
No.
just. Why would I be here? Like, what would he be here? What do you mean?
So yeah, Shapur was apparently then imprisoned and sewn into the skin of an ass and thrown in a dungeon.
Skin of an ass, oh no.
But there, the Persian maid of the Roman queen softened the skin with milk and managed to sneak Shapur out of there.
Wait, how does that
fled
work?
away together. I don't know, Serial.
Is this just like woman magic?
I'm pretty sure it's woman magic, yes.
I
It's
see.
like, it's one of those things women don't tell us, but they know secret ways to get kings out of asses' skins.
I see. That might be like in one of the secret books or something.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
That's what you get on Woman Induction Day 1. How to sneak people out of jail.
That. Yeah,
Yeah, it happens.
fair enough.
But okay, let's take a little break from the war to see how the Empire is being run. What's going on? Wait, oh dear. Religion is a thing. Oh god.
Yeah, I was going to say,
no.
so what happened with like the changes in religion that happened, during the last 3 reigns?
Yeah, do you remember what Constantine said in his letter to Shapur?
That all Christians were his subjects?
That's right.
Keyword all, no matter
Yes.
where they live?
If you receive this letter and you are Shapur, how would you feel towards the Christians in your empire?
Wait, this is so stupid. That's not what I thought you were going for at all. I would be mad at Constantine for daring to say that he somehow has power over my subjects. And then I would be like, well, that's not...
yeah, that is definitely a reason to be angry. But also...
Well, the Christians in the Empire didn't do anything. They didn't go to talk to Constantine.
Well, they have been told that there is a massive Christian empire where they are the privileged class and not the underdogs.
Well, that has to do with, this empire having underdogs.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Like, it's not the Christians' fault.
A later king will have a better solution. But
It's
Shapur
not
starts to
the
think,
minority's fault if
Yeah.
they are treated badly. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Well, Shapur starts to think, and he says that, well, if these Christians... What happens if I have a majority Christian city and it's besieged by Christian Romans? Are they
They're
going to
just-
remain loyal?
Probably
Or
not.
are they just
if
going
you
to
treat
switch
them
sides?
like, here's the thing: if you're treating them terribly, probably not. But like Christians or any people,
Yes, but Sarah, I don't know if you see from history, but a key way to get rid of Christians is to persecute them. They immediately disappear as soon as you persecute them. They don't have a whole cult about it. They don't have the whole Saint Sebastian thing where it's like,
Nah.
if you're murdered, that's great. Actually, it gives us more power.
Where did I hear that?
This resulted in Shapur trying to limit the Christians. So he first of all increased taxation on them so that they
course.
wouldn't have money
That's how
to
you
support.
start. Yeah.
And some slightly more murdery persecutions. Although the Christian sources usually don't blame those on the king, but on the Zoroastrian priesthood.
Because it's religion against religion.
Yeah.
So.
Although we also have reports of Zoroastrian priests refusing to persecute Christians, so...
Yeah. So probably,
Who's telling the truth? Probably some and some.
Yeah. I'm sure there were some priests who were very happy about the persecution, but,
Yeah, I've also seen it suggested that these persecutions started up in the early years of Shapur's reign, because as part of his taking control of the nobility, he needed a bargaining chip, and so he said, if you all obey, I'm going to give you the persecutions you wanted, religious establishment. Is that fine? And they said, okay, good deal, let's go.
I see.
So, who knows? It's possible, it might not. An interesting element is also that different Christian groups protested their innocence against accusations of treason to Rome by accusing different groups of Christians.
Because, of course, you gotta be
They're
divided.
saying, oh no, we're a different brand of Christian. Those people, they're the traitors. They're the ones betraying you. We're on your side.
If this isn't all of minorities' history ever. Where
Fighting
clearly
each
you
other.
stand stronger together, but you have to just do what they want you to do, which is turn on your own.
Yeah. It's not a good strategy. It's not a kind strategy. Let's not do that. A similar thing is also happening in the Roman Empire against the Manichaeans because ooh, these people are scary and of Persian origin. We should probably kill them all before they tell us that we should be kind to each other. That sort of thing.
That's dangerous, yeah. We don't want people in a more unfortunate situation to think that they have the power to change their lives.
No, absolutely not. That would be foolish.
It will disrupt the status quo, and the status quo benefits me.
Instead, on the Zoroastrian side, there was a lot of reform going on under the impetus of a guy called Adurbad, son of Marsband, who was the new high priest taking over Cartier's position, although with a much reduced power. He is just like, he's the same job, but
well, we did establish that, Cartier's had like a bit of too much, on steroids.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of power.
But,
so
yeah. So Shapur does want a capable high priest, but not somebody who is just going to outshine him, essentially.
Yeah.
According to legend, this Adurbad was deemed righteous after an ordeal where molten metal was poured on his chest and he was unharmed.
What? Okay, I don't... Either there was some really good trick going on, or that's just made up.
Leidenfrost effect, maybe? I don't know. Could be. If you put enough water on your chest, it will just evaporate.
That's
and
true.
Form
and
a
create a layer,
create a little
that
pillow of air
you.
that puts the metal away. I don't know. A
Very
sweaty enough
dangerous
man will do this.
I was gonna say very dangerous to risk your life on that and trust that you're doing it right?
Yeah.
I mean, physics will work, but you need to figure out how much you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You need to make
At what temperature should the water be?
It's complicated. But apparently it worked for him, so good job, Adurbad. Adurbad apparently then codified the Avesta, which is the Zoroastrian collection of holy books, and worked to weed out heretical versions of the religion. And all of this was crowned by a great council, which reminds me of the contemporary Nicaea, and may have actually been made to mirror what the Romans were doing. And in this great council, all Zoroastrian theologians met up to discuss what was canon and what was not.
As people often do in religion.
Yeah.
True. And I'm sure there weren't any punches thrown.
No. In this case, Santa didn't punch anyone. He wasn't part of this council. It was unfortunately not there.
Sad.
But it looks like the discussion was quite lively because there are still several types of Mazdaism that are lying around. Because it looks like what Cartier had done was more related to Mazdaean practice and worship, rather than the more theological elements with where does Ahura Mazda come from and where does Ahriman come from, and do they come from a primordial entity or are they just uncreated? What happens there? Who knows? So yeah, Shapur's council was meant to decide which of these versions were correct and collect all the sacred texts together so everybody knew what was canon and knew what they were actually discussing.
So we're all on the same page, literally.
So in the end, while Shapur would be remembered as he who regulated the world, Adurbad would be remembered as the restorer of the religion against the heretics. Which might also hint that a previous version of the religion, maybe even Cartier's, had been struck down. And a new order has been established.
I see. It might be Cartier's, because we know that, his influence had been...
Yeah, because unlike Cartier, who was forgotten by Zoroastrianism, Adurbad is remembered fondly by Zoroastrian tradition.
Well,
So
that's interesting.
his level still survives, which is surprising. All these processes resulted in a great return to power for the Zoroastrian priesthood, since their authority and doctrine were now being formalized, and there was now sort of a parallel hierarchy in the church, with Adurbad as his head, being called the Mobadan Mobad, which means priest of priests, which will hold significant sway in the centuries to come as the King of Kings becomes more and more secular, and the religious side of things is left to religious people.
I see. Yeah.
Which, incidentally, is also sort of what's happening on the Roman side. The Roman emperors are no longer Pontifex Maximus. There is now a pope and bishops and stuff.
Right, yeah. Good point, yeah.
A little bit later than this time period, but we're getting there. What about the Jews? How are they doing?
What about the Jews?
It looks like Shapur's mother believed that rabbis had supernatural powers, which is fine.
I guess?
So she enjoyed talking to rabbis and getting them to tell her the future.
Uh-huh.
And some Christian sources, which are probably anti-Semitic, also say that the Jews participated in the persecutions of Christians, and as soon as they got the opportunity, they tried to.
This is like,
Kick
don't
the
we
Christians
come from the same,
in the
like, isn't
shins.
this the same religion? Guys.
Well, Serial, you would get stabbed in several different languages
Yeah,
for saying that.
I know. I don't mean, like, it's clearly a different religion, a different, like, way to approach it, but, like, it is the same story, isn't it?
Wow.
Why are we so mad at each other?
Wow,
We literally have the same gods. Like, it's not even...
It's Oily Josh's fault, Serial. Oily Josh was there, and if you believe Oily Josh was the Messiah, then you're on one team. If you don't, then you're on another team.
You mean Oily Josh?
Yes, Jesus the Anointed One. Jesus the Christ. Him. Oily Josh.
I wish to go
Good
to
times.
5 seconds ago where I hadn't heard that.
Well, it happens
Yeah, it happens a lot on the podcast, actually.
often. But on the bright side, it looks like the Jewish population was not persecuted directly by the government, but they also did get the extra taxes for not being Zoroastrian. But unlike the Christians, the Jewish people didn't refuse to pay and then eventually get killed for tax evasion.
Yeah.
Generally, the rabbis would just lie to the government and say, no, we don't have that many Jews. Like, we have a ton of people who are quote-unquote worshippers of the fire, which is technically true if you consider the story of Moses and the burning bush.
Yes.
So you
So
don't
not
have to pay
really
taxes for
lying, but
those
just-
people. It's actually fine.
I see. I understand.
And this also kind of fits with the fact that Jewish people were being persecuted by the Romans from time to time, so Shapur could be reasonably confident that, okay, they don't like the Romans either, so it's
Yeah.
going to be okay.
I see.
You know, rather than move to the Roman side where they're being actively persecuted, they're going to be more likely to stay on my side where they're being just taxed a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But now, Serial, Shapur is on the Western Front. He's at war with the Romans, but he gets a letter from Jessica. Jessica comes over, delivers a letter, and says,
Good news.
Hello,
or
sir.
bad news?
the letter says, let's get down to business.
To defeat the Huns?
Exactly, Serial. The Huns are
Oh
coming.
boy, what are the Huns doing here? No!
Yeah, they're a century early because we're much further east than the Romans.
Oh boy.
So, hooray! It's time for the Huns to arrive.
Well, I've heard that they're trouble, so...
Yes, they are generally a nuisance to the settled empires. They are frowned upon. They scar their faces to be scarier. That's
Whoa.
fair enough.
That's badass.
Yeah, and then they burn your city to the ground to be even scarier. Which I think sends a message.
Yeah, that will do it. That will do it.
Yeah. So, Shapur needs to leave the West, and coincidentally, this works well because the Roman Emperor Constantius also had his own Germanic barbarians to deal with, so they agree, let's have a truce, and we can deal with our barbarians, and then we'll fight again. Okay, good, let's go, bye. See you in a few years, I'll try and stab you in the face next time. So what happened is that there were a bunch of people called the Chionites, or Kidarites, which is, depending on whether you talk about the people or the dynasty, that were threatening the newly formed Gupta Empire in India and the eastern border of the Sassanid Empire.
I see.
These people are sometimes called Red Huns, as opposed to, I think there are Black Huns and Green Huns. I don't know if there are Yellow Huns, there may be, or I might be making that up. But there are colorful Huns.
Interesting. For any reason in particular? Or
Don't know.
maybe their clothing? I don't know.
Yeah, I was able to find why it might be. If anybody knows, please get in touch.
Let us know.
And it's controversial whether these are related to Attila's Huns, because the Chinese sources are claiming that there's a Western movement from the Xiongnu people, which we had met a while ago, and the Xiongnu are the Huns and they're moving over, but it's controversial between academics whether these are like actually Attila's Huns, but like 100 years early, or if they're just called Huns, because they are a steppe people and the Romans can't distinguish them.
That's also very fair, yeah.
So, who knows? But yeah, so we don't really have many details for the war, but it seems to have been a bloody and protracted affair. But as Shapur has done time and time again, he emerges victorious. And at long last, the king of the Kidarites accepts his status as a vassal and ally of Shapur, which included a bunch of Kidarite soldiers to try and fight the Romans. So we've added some Hun mercenaries to our army, which we can use to shoot more arrows at the Romans a lot faster.
I guess.
In exchange, it looks like the Kidarites were probably allowed to settle in the newly conquered Kushan lands, particularly Bactria, and it looks like Shapur probably also promised to pay them for their service in battle, making sure that, they were more like a set of self-ruling vassals than a completely subject people. But the Romans still exist, so let's deal with that, Sarah. There had been negotiations for peace in 357, 7 years after the last significant conflict. And in his letter, as preserved by the Romans, Shapur says that he is the rightful owner of all the lands that the Achaemenids owned. But he was going to be reasonable, and he was going to settle for Armenia and Mesopotamia, basically going to the borders that we had when Shapur I was around. So fully cancelling the Treaty of Nisibis. Constantius replied that this was laughable, and that since he had now disposed of his brothers and was sole ruler of the Roman Empire, Shapur was in no position to make demands, and that he should just give Armenia and Mesopotamia to the Romans. So war it is. In 359, Shapur marches with the Kidarite king against Syria, and together they bypass the city of Nisibis because they tried to besiege it 3 times. Let's not try a 4th time, this is getting silly. So they besieged the city of Amida, and it was another massive siege like the ones of Nisibis. And Shapur himself was almost killed several times, and the Romans almost managed to break out of the city. The siege itself lasted for 70 days, and Shapur was almost forced to retreat, but then he ordered 3 days of continual assaults against the Romans, with himself fighting in the front lines, being described with some admiration by our historian Ammianus Marcellinus, who is one of our sources and was fighting on the Roman side. So he said, no, Shapur
Amazing
was actually impressive.
The Romans who are very against the Persians would still recognize that. Amazing.
Yes, he said, no, Shapur actually did a good job here. We're also told that Shapur tried to negotiate a surrender with Amida, but was shot at by the defenders, which resulted in his cloak being torn and Shapur being furious. So then we had another massive assault with elephants. There were hidden passages to capture section of the walls, siege towers with mounted ballistae that the Romans set on fire, the Persians filling the city trenches with the corpses that they found around them, building a massive ramp up to the walls. It is a hardcore war. The overcrowded city in the meantime began to suffer from hunger and epidemics, and the defenders were more and more weakened.
Damn.
And then finally there was one last assault, because the defenders of Amida killed the son of the Kidarite king with a ballista. And there was a whole fight to recover the body, which is very Iliad of them just fighting to get the prince back and save his body. But then the next day, under a new assault, the city of Amida fell. And when the city was pillaged, it was entirely annihilated, because the Kidarites were not playing around. These Huns were ready for revenge for their prince. So the 7 legions stationed in Amida, which is the same amount as Carrhae, which you'll remember from the good old Parthian days. Remember when Crassus got gold poured into his mouth? The good times. We're told that, the 7 legions were slaughtered with, quoting Ammianus again, armed and unarmed alike, without distinction of sex, were slaughtered like so many cattle. And any survivors were deported to Khuzestan, which is basically the region of Old Elam, which is the bit between Mesopotamia and Persia, which I just found out stands for Suzastan. It's where the old capital of Susa was, and it's just Khuzestan.
I see.
So yes, Amida was finally conquered. Shapur has made some way through, which is an impressive gain thanks to these new Hunnic troops he has gained by defeating them. I assume they work according to anime rules, where if you defeat them, they will follow you forever.
Anime rules are good rules.
But then Shapur managed to take some more fortresses in the area, but not Nisibis. Nisibis keeps standing strong. Nisibis is now a holy terror. And this caused Armenia to consider switching over to the Persian side. because now that the Persians have control of a lot of border fortresses, northern Mesopotamia is secure, and some minor vassal kingdoms that were following the Romans are now switching to the Persian side. And it looks like, unlike Amida, if other cities surrendered to Shapur, he was merciful. He said, if you give up, great, we'll just march in and add you to the empire. That's cool. Nothing bad needs to happen.
Fair.
But if you resist, we will slaughter every man, woman, and child. Which is not great. And definitely convinces people to surrender more often than not. It is at this point that we're told by certain sources that Shapur sent a request for peace with the Romans, but he was rebuffed. And it's also interesting that he sort of takes a bit of a break right now, because he doesn't press the advantage now that there's a civil war starting with the Romans, because some nerd called Julian is rebelling against Emperor Constantius. And it looks like the Romans are gearing up for this big war. But Shapur doesn't really push the advantage, he just stays calm. And we're not sure why exactly, but the fact that we don't hear of the Kidarites as his allies after this point suggests that maybe after their prince was killed in Amida, they went back east to their own area, and maybe there was some disagreements between the two. So it looks like Shapur decided to handle the situation on his own without having to trust in his allies, so he had to just calm down a second and reassess the situation. Although the fact that Amida had been taken meant that he could probably comfortably attack Syria in the future if the Romans ever came back. The Romans claim that this war didn't happen, that Shapur didn't attack because the omens weren't favorable, but, sure, Shapur might be superstitious, but you're not going to depend your foreign policy on what an oracle says if you know that it's going to work out. Shapur has shown that he is a capable man. He knows what's going to happen. And then the aforementioned nerd Julian became emperor because Constantius just died and made him his heir.
Well,
so
I guess that's how it
Julian
works.
has gathered all of his books. He has gathered books relating to Trajan's expedition into Mesopotamia. And he has decided that he is going to give it a shot and try and take Ctesiphon, like in the Parthian
Try
days.
his best.
And try he will in the next episode of Shapur II.
Oh, we get
Shocker,
another.
this
Let's
is a
go.
two-parter serial. This is our second two-parter. Shapur
very
II
fair.
rules for too long.
So many things happen. I am so impressed by this man.
The fetus
I
king.
did not.
He doubled his weight in the first few months of his reign. I mean, that's impressive if anybody's done that. Shocking.
Man, please.
Yes. So,
stop this nonsense.
yes, this is the beginning of Shapur. There's going to be more. We'll find out what happens to Julian. Fans of Totalis Rankium will know him as Bloody Julian.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, we'll find out more about what happens to Shapur and rank him in our next episode. But for now, that is it for episode 68.1, Shapur II.
Incredible.
Yes.
I guess I don't get to make a doodle this time. I'll make one
What are
next
your
time.
thoughts so far, Serial?
I don't know what to
what
do.
are your reactions to Shapur?
I'm very
Clearly
impressed.
you didn't expect this to happen.
No.
Do you think he's going to hold up in the second part?
I thought this would be a really
or no?
short episode.
Absolutely not.
What?
Based on my notes, this is the fourth longest episode in notes.
Wow.
Longest character. After Alexander the Great and two more people that we need to cover afterwards.
Wow. Incredible. No, I'm super excited. I mean, this is super fun. I'm really happy when I am wrong in a positive way.
Yes.
I love being pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I'm slightly sorry that we don't have more about his childhood. We don't know if he pulled an Antiochus III to have to, play all his courtiers against each other and then make it, but clearly something worked because he became an adult, which is more than you would expect.
And a capable adult who's, doing a good job at running an empire.
Yeah, he is restoring the empire from the bad times we were falling in, and now things are going well.
Amazing.
What do you expect for the next episode? Do you think Julian's invasion is going to go well? Do you think Shapur is going to fall flat on his face before the finish line, or do you think he's going to just keep getting higher and higher and more powerful? Or middle ground, who knows?
Well, I don't know. We still have an entire second episode, right? Like, if it were just like half an hour more, we might have done it on this one. So
yes, the next episode is roughly going to be the length of this one, which is why I chose to split
so
it in two.
I expect we have a few more. I hope it won't be a Narse scenario.
Yeah.
Where everything goes to shit. But
that would be sad.
Yeah. I'm very curious. I'm very interested. Can't wait to hear what happens.
Nice.
So join us next time.
Yes. But if you still want some content, you cannot wait. Well, you can join us on Patreon.
Yeah, we have extra episodes there.
Yes, we have extra episodes. We have new patrons. We have new patrons, Demi and Some Guy. Thank you for joining us. That's great.
Literally named Some Guy, we're not being rude here.
We're not trying to disparage this person. It's just
he
called
joined our
Some Guy.
Patreon and we're just like, yes, some person, a rando.
And yeah, if you join our Patreon, we've done a series on religious figures recently. We've done Mani, Kartir, and we're going to have St. Gregory the Illuminator, who Christianized Armenia. And excitingly enough, we also have a new extra series that is being voted on between now and the 15th of the month. So join Patreon quickly if you want to vote on it, where we are deciding between several different groups of people. These groups are religious travelers, including St. Thomas in India, the false prophet Alexander, Dionysus in India, Last Kings, which are Artabanus IV, Antiochus VII, and Demetrius II, at the end of our past dynasties, and enemies of Iran, which includes Ptolemy III, Pompey the Great, and Odenathus. If any of those sound interesting, join our Patreon at the appropriate tier and you'll get a voice in this. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine. We just appreciate if you could give us a quick review on your podcast app of choice. You can just either give us just a quick rating or just say, hey, I like this podcast. Doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Just has to be something that lets other people know that we exist and that you enjoy us, because that's always nice. And we always enjoy hearing it because it's gratifying to know that people are listening to us. It's not just numbers on a screen. Yeah. It's actually people who care, which is good.
It's really lovely to hear all the reviews and to read all the reviews and to hear your opinions.
Yes. So. And yeah, so without any further ado, we hope you enjoyed this first part of Shapur II, and we'll see you next time with the end of Shapur II's episode.
Until then,
have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.